Hello, folks. Welcome to today's version of the Daily Minute. It's definitely a Daily Minute-ish today because it's International Day. Talk to all our folks from around the world as to what they have going on, so I need a little bit of time to cover all that. That's why I came up with a backdrop of stealing a poster from my daughter's bedroom just to make it more internationally focused. Listen, let's start with Brazil, work our way around a little bit, all of our tech center locations. Brazil's still having a difficult time. They're extending their quarantine periods through 6/15. There's some loosening in some areas with small businesses to kind of lighten up some of the restrictions, but overall, not necessarily a good picture yet there. Agriculture seems to be by far the best market sector that's currently going in Brazil. And another really interesting thing, and I found this one of the more interesting thing of the conversations out of a lot of the guys, is one of the major or the major machine tool manufacturer in Brazil. You can figure out who it is on your own. They started a new program called Machines as a Service. So not overly unique with that, but the reality is what it is they're doing it for is the more unique part. So they finance a lot of their customers' equipment. And in this very difficult time, they're finding a lot of those folks can't pay for the equipment. And so a lot of the equipment's coming back. So they have, by an estimate that I've got, 2,500 machines that came back. You got 2,500 machines that come back, you got to figure out what to do with them. So someone had the idea, which isn't actually a bad idea for them, if you're trying to fix your balance sheet issue, is to rent those machines back out. And so they started this Machines as a Service program, and I'm going to try to put those out on the market as rentals. But keep in mind what that starts to do to the overall sales and impacting in that particular area. So you want to keep your eye on that. As we segue on a similar point to Europe, there's a very similar thing there where a lot of the machines at shops that can't afford to keep them are going back into a secondary market. And there's people grabbing those in the secondary market and looking to put them back out in either a machine rental basis or trying to find specific sale opportunities, but more trying to move to a similar type of thing, see if they can develop a rental application, as cash flow is king for a lot of different businesses. So two factors that really kind of hit the space that we're in you want to keep track of. Factories are moving forward a little bit, certainly in Europe, as they keep on inching forward. One of the problems is not enough consumer demand pulling. So you're actually, well, you're finally getting the factories going. The fact is there's some really big redundancies, or in our version of English, layoffs. A lot of layoffs, thousands of layoffs, because they just can't keep the volume going through the factories to keep the pace they'd want to keep all those people employed. From a machine tool sector number standpoint, Swiss market off 6%, German off 25%, Italian off 11%, but that's their total. If you look at their domestic market, they're off 40%, where a lot of their sales obviously are in Italy. So if we go over to India, just kind of scoping for you where they're at with the whole pandemic side of things. They have 200,000 cases and 5,000 deaths. So from a metric standpoint, considering 1.23 billion people, not too bad if those are the correct numbers for them. Restrictions are being relaxed. There's more ability to move state to state, even though each state has different restrictions, but there is movement. Their PMI is up to 30.8. That's up, when I say up, from 27.8. So not exactly stellar, but it's a movement in the right direction. Car sales, they're way, way off. They're down 85%. They did about 35,000 vehicles in the last month. So obviously they're way off there. An interesting point for India, the government is putting a lot of incentive money out there to try to get more electronics industry into the area. So they have a real focus on putting billions of dollars into attracting new electronics business. So India's already the second largest manufacturer of cell phones to China, and they're looking at that as probably the easier to capitalize growth business that they can create. So the government's pulling out the stops to figure out how to create a lot of incentives there, which, by the way, isn't making their automotive industry very happy at all, as they pick the electronics industry over the auto industry when it comes to getting some government money. Switching now to China. As of the 2nd, today actually, all schools are open. And so there is a movement in the right direction there. They report, and you can just take this at face value, they report only 5 new cases of the virus. Be that as it may, whatever the numbers actually are, I think the important thing to watch with China is they're much further ahead in the process, and as they put more of their factories back into full pace, as they put more of their schools back into full pace, how do they manage through that, and is there any repercussions? And if not, those are positive signs. According to our guys that have to travel back and forth to the office, rush hour is totally back to normal, so full traffic back on the roads. When we talk to some of our STC folks as to how they're doing, they're seeing a lot of favorable business things going on. So they're seeing the recovery, they're seeing more business travel opening up, more visits with customers being allowed, more conversations about projects and programs they want to get involved with. So that's a real positive. PMI there, 50.6. And so they're on the right side of 50, which is good for them. The big story there was an announcement yesterday from the central government about the Hanan free trade port that's being put in. And this is really kind of a very, very interesting point as well. So they're looking at this as a way to kind of help trade with all the ASEAN countries. So, help them out in the entire Southeast Asia area. And it's an interesting play. I mean, the Hanan Island is a similar size to Taiwan. You're talking about 36,000 square kilometers and a population size that's similar to Hong Kong. So it's a play where as things get kind of soft with what's going on these days with Hong Kong, and you look at maybe them trying to position Hanan as the new island that's going to be their Taiwan even adjusted replacement. So when you kind of look at the opportunity of the size, geographic size and kind of number of people in the area, and actually making it a free trade zone. So they're talking about 15% tax rate, so business tax and personal tax, same as Hong Kong. Zero tariffs, zero subsidies, zero barriers, a lot of political freedom to the folks there to be able to do what they need to do to get things set up. There's going to be an enormous amount of investment going in there, and there's already a lot of infrastructure going on, infrastructure building going on in China, as we mentioned in the past, for our guys' business and figuring out what industries are active. Infrastructure is huge, a lot of construction. This is only going to add to that. So that announcement just came out. I'll tell you, it's very new. So again, it's the Hanan Free Trade Port, and it's really going to be the new connection into that whole Southeast Asia area and an economic boom to what's going to happen in that area, and watch for kind of the political and geopolitical situations between then Hong Kong and Taiwan in that space. So a little bit of what's going on there. One last point I'd bring out relative to China. I know everyone talks about the reshoring or things that are going on. Many countries are kind of going to the China plus one strategy. Japan, Korea, a lot of countries looking at going, look, for what I make in China and leave in China, I want to keep in China. But from a low-cost standpoint, I need to have a backup, especially not knowing how things might go with their economy or otherwise. And so they're doing China plus one. So they're adding, Singapore, Malaysia. They're adding, going to another lower cost country in the area. And that's kind of an interesting thing to watch. In some cases, not a total exit and repositioning, but in some cases, it's a plus one. So just a couple things to pass on, tidbits from the guys when I talk to them regularly. So kind of sorry, went into big triple overtime there. So hopefully you found that information useful, and we'll catch up to you again tomorrow.